They thought she was just another washed-up crop duster spraying pesticides over Nebraska corn. A ghost drowning in jet fuel and bad coffee. But when a rogue squadron of F-35s locked onto her rusty prop plane, their targeting computers didn't register a threat. They registered a commander, call sign, Viper. The air inside the cockpit of the air tractor AT-802 tasted like pennies and organophosphates. Chloe Adams kept the nose pitched down, holding a steady 10 feet above the endless, violently green grid of Nebraska corn. The heavy radial engine violently shook the airframe, a relentless vibration that rattled straight up her spine and settled in her molars. She didn't mind it. The shaking meant the engine was alive. It meant she was flying. She banked hard left, pulling 3 Gs in a machine built for agriculture, not acrobatics. The wings shuddered. The heavy spray booms hissed, leaving a trailing mist of fungicide in her wake. Down below, the stalks of corn whipped back from the prop wash. She clipped the edge of a scarecrow's wooden post with her landing gear. Intentional, a game of inches to keep her mind sharp, and leveled out before the tree line could tear her wings off. "You're cutting it awful close on the south ridge, Chloe," a voice crackled through her cheap duct-taped headset. It was Frank, the owner of the airfield, watching through a pair of dirty binoculars from the bed of his pickup truck. "Corn doesn't get bugs on the top, Frank," she thumbed the radio. "You want it sprayed, or do you want it misted politely from orbit?" Frank grunted. "Just don't put my tractor in the dirt. Insurance won't cover your stunts." She clicked off the radio and exhaled, the sound lost in the roar of the Pratt & Whitney turbine. Chloe was 39. Her hands were perpetually stained with grease, and a jagged, pale scar ran from her left collarbone up to the edge of her jaw. A souvenir from a life that felt like it belonged to a dead woman. 7 years ago, she wasn't spraying corn. 7 years ago, she was flying close air support over the Hindu Kush, dropping ordnance so close to friendly lines it singed the eyebrows off the enemy. She was an anomaly. One of the few women to survive the grueling meat grinder of SEAL training, pinning the trident to her chest before realizing she could do more damage from the sky. She transferred to naval aviation, joining a Black Book JSOC squadron that didn't officially exist. They flew modified F-18s, painted matte black, devoid of tail numbers. They called her Viper. Not because it sounded cool, but because she had a nasty habit of waiting in the weeds, perfectly still, before striking with lethal, localized precision. Then came the op in Yemen, a bad call by a general sitting in an air-conditioned tent in Virginia. 2 of her teammates on the ground dead. A court-martial that got swept under the rug to save the Pentagon's face. They stripped her wings, gave her an honorable discharge to buy her silence, and threw her back into the civilian world with a ruined shoulder and a head full of ghosts. So now she flew a yellow tractor plane in the middle of nowhere. It was quiet here. No brass, no rules of engagement. Just the wind, the dirt, and the chemicals. Chloe pulled the stick back, climbing to 500 feet to line up her next pass. She reached up and adjusted the rearview mirror. A truck part she'd bolted to the canopy frame herself. That was when she saw it. It wasn't a visual at first. It was a disturbance in the atmosphere. The heavy, humid July air suddenly compressed. Boom. The shockwave hit the AT-802 like a physical fist. The crop duster violently yawed right. Chloe's head slammed against the canopy glass. Warning alarms blared to life, the stall horn screaming as the heavy plane lost lift. Her hands moved before her conscious brain could catch up. Muscle memory, etched in fire, and adrenaline took over. She kicked the rudder hard left, shoved the throttle forward, and force the nose down to catch the turbulent air. The crop duster groaned, rivets popping, the frame screaming against the sudden aerodynamic stress. She leveled out 50 feet above the dirt, her chest heaving. "What the hell was that?" Frank yelled over the radio, panic bleeding through the static. "Sounded like a damn meteor." Chloe didn't answer. She was looking up. Through the scratched plexiglass of her canopy, 3 gray arrows tore through the scattered clouds. They were flying low. Too low. F-35C Lightning IIs. They were traveling in a tight V formation, pushing Mach 1 right over civilian airspace. The sonic boom had been their wake. But what caught Chloe's eye wasn't their speed. It was their erratic movement. The lead fighter was banking sharply, completely out of sync with his wingman. They were dropping flares, bright magnesium bursts of white light against the blue sky. You don't drop countermeasures in Nebraska, not unless someone is shooting at you. "Frank," Chloe said, her voice dropping into a cold, flat register she hadn't used in 7 years. "Get off the radio. Get in your truck and drive away from the field. Now." "Chloe, what are those jets?" "Now, Frank." She didn't wait for his reply. She banked the heavy crop duster upward, her eyes tracking the jets. Trailing a mile behind the F-35s, barely visible against the glare of the sun, was a small, darting shape. It moved with impossible physics. No wings, no contrail. Just a sleek, matte silver fuselage that shifted directions instantaneously, bleeding speed without banking. A drone. Unmanned. And it was painting the F-35s. Chloe knew the silhouette. It was a DARPA ghost project she'd seen on a whiteboard years ago, an autonomous interceptor designed to hijack enemy radar and force catastrophic system failures. It wasn't supposed to exist outside a simulator, and it definitely wasn't supposed to be hunting American pilots over the Midwest. The lead F-35 suddenly went into a violent, uncontrolled dive. The drone was jamming his fly-by-wire system. The pilot was fighting a ghost in the machine. Chloe's jaw tightened. She was sitting in a slow, bulky plane filled with 500 gallons of toxic sludge. She had no missiles, no radar, but she had gravity. And she knew how to fly. The altimeter on the AT-802 struggled to keep up as Chloe coaxed the heavy aircraft into a steep, agonizing climb. The Pratt & Whitney engine howled, protesting the strain as she pushed it past the red line. 3,000 feet, 4,000. Above her, the dogfight, if you could call a one-sided slaughter a dogfight, was devolving rapidly. The F-35s were state-of-the-art, billion-dollar miracles of modern engineering. They were designed to kill from 100 miles away. They were not designed for a knife fight in a phone booth with an AI drone that didn't care about G-forces. Through her canopy, Chloe watched the second F-35 pitch violently to the left, trying to shake the drone. The silver dart mirrored the move perfectly, closing the distance. It wasn't trying to shoot them down with kinetic weapons. It was trying to get close enough to fry their avionics with a focused electromagnetic pulse, or simply ram them. They're flying blind, Chloe realized. The drone is jamming their Link 16 network. They can't talk to each other. They can't see their own HUDs. They were just kids in very expensive, very dead metal tubes. Chloe reached beneath the rusted metal dash of her crop duster, past the wires for the spray pumps, past the emergency fuel shutoff. Her fingers found a small black plastic box mounted flush against the firewall. When she had been discharged, she was forced to surrender her weapons, her clearances, and her gear. But she hadn't surrendered her helmet comms unit. She had stripped the heavily encrypted tactical transponder and wired it into the Duster's VHF radio. a piece of Spec Ops hardware capable of cutting through any electronic warfare jamming on the planet, powered by a John Deere alternator. She only used it to listen to encrypted military weather broadcasts when she was bored. She flipped the toggle switch. The radio hissed, a sharp, piercing whine cutting through the cockpit. She keyed the mic on her stick. "Viper actual to blind mice in my airspace," Chloe barked, her voice slicing through the static of the encrypted channel. "You are currently being herded. Break formation, scatter your altitude, and switch to analog manual override." In the cockpits of the 3 F-35s, chaos had been the only constant for the last 4 minutes. Lieutenant Tyler "Crash" Owens was sweating through his flight suit, fighting the stick of his lead jet. His displays were a mess of digital static. The drone's electronic warfare suite was chewing through his firewalls like paper. Then, suddenly, his helmet comms crackled to life. The voice was female, calm, authoritative, and utterly devoid of panic. But it wasn't just the voice that made Tyler freeze. It was his heads-up display. Through the jamming, the F-35's deeply buried, hard-coded core system recognized the encrypted ping hitting its receiver. It was a legacy code, a Tier 1 JSOC command code, the kind of clearance that overrode generals. A flashing green box appeared on Tyler's visor, locking onto a slow-moving target 3,000 feet below them. The system text populated beside it: target, friendly, call sign, Viper, status, command actual. Tyler stared at the visor. The system was identifying the supreme commander of the battle space, and the visor was pointing directly at a bright yellow crop duster. "Command, this is Lightning 1, Tyler gasped, pulling hard on the stick to avoid the drone's latest pass. "Our avionics are scrambled. I have 0 radar. We can't lock on to the bogey." "You can't lock on because you're looking at screens, Lightning 1, Chloe's voice snapped back, crystal clear. "Look out the damn window. He's pulling into your blind spot, low 6. Brake right, drop your nose, and bleed your speed. Now!" Tyler didn't think. The tone in her voice didn't ask for compliance. It demanded it. He slammed the stick right, dropping the nose and pulling the throttle back. The silver drone shot past his canopy, missing him by mere feet. "Lightning 2, Lightning 3, form up on me," Chloe ordered. In her crop duster, Chloe was bleeding altitude fast, diving toward the deck. She couldn't outrun the drone. She couldn't shoot it, but she understood the drone's programming. It was designed to hunt advanced threats. It attacked electronic signatures, radar emissions, and thermal blooms. Her crop duster was a giant piece of analog metal. To the drone's highly advanced AI, the AT-802 didn't look like an airplane. It looked like a very fast airborne tractor. It wasn't a threat. "Lightning 1, I need you to drag him down to me," Chloe said. Her hands danced across the dash, arming the chemical spray pumps. "Bring him into the weeds. Viper, with respect, you are in an agricultural aircraft," Tyler yelled, wrestling his jet level. "You do not have weapons." "I have gravity and 500 gallons of highly corrosive viscous fungicide," Chloe replied smoothly. "Bring him down to 200 feet, heading 090. Do it, Lieutenant." Tyler swallowed hard. The F-35 system was still flashing command actual over the yellow biplane. Whoever she was, the multi-billion-dollar network trusted her. Copy diving. The 3 F-35s inverted, plummeting toward the green expanse of the cornfields. The drone, sensing the retreat, snapped into a steep dive, trailing right behind them. Chloe was waiting. She leveled the crop duster 100 feet off the ground, flying directly toward the oncoming jets. It was a game of aerial chicken. 3 Mach-capable fighter jets, and an experimental kill drone screaming toward a rusty yellow prop plane at a combined closure rate of 1,000 miles an hour. "Hold your vector, Lightning," Chloe whispered to herself, her eyes locked on the tiny dots growing larger in her windshield. "Viper, we are pulling out in 3 seconds," Tyler shouted over the radio. "He is right on our tail." "Hold. 2 seconds. Hold." The noise was deafening. The massive roar of the F-35 turbines shook the earth below. "Pull up!" Chloe screamed. The 3 F-35s snapped upward, rocketing into the vertical. The drone, locked onto their thermal wake, tried to follow. But it was moving too fast, and the F-35s had perfectly masked what was directly in front of them. The drone suddenly found itself face to face with a massive yellow radial engine. Chloe yanked the stick back, stalling the crop duster into a momentary hover, and slammed her fist onto the spray release button. She didn't release a mist, she dumped the emergency purge valve. 500 gallons of thick, oily, chemical fungicide exploded out of the bottom of the AT-802 in a dense, blinding curtain of liquid. The drone hit the wall of liquid at 600 miles an hour. The thick chemicals instantly coated the drone's optical sensors, clogged its intake vents, and smothered its delicate thermal regulators. The sheer mass of the liquid acting like a brick wall against the hyper-fast, lightweight drone. The AI panicked. Its sensors read a sudden, massive failure. Blinded and choking, the drone's flight surfaces spasmed. It snapped into a violent spin, missing Chloe's landing gear by inches, and plummeted straight into the soft, muddy earth of the cornfield. Crash! A plume of black smoke and shredded green stalks erupted into the air. Chloe let out a long, slow breath. She pushed the nose down, caught the air under her wings, and smoothly banked away from the smoke column. "Lightning flight, this is Viper," Chloe said, her heart rate finally settling back down to a normal rhythm. She reached up and wiped a streak of grease off her forehead. "Your airspace is clear. Bogey is in the dirt." High above, Tyler and his wingmen leveled out, staring down at the smoking crater in the cornfield. Then they looked at the yellow crop duster, casually banking back toward a dirt runway as if it had just swatted a fly. The flashing text on Tyler's visor blinked once, then vanished as the jamming cleared. "Viper, this is Lightning 1, Tyler stammered over the open channel. Thank you. What exactly are you?" Chloe stared out at the horizon. The sun was starting to set, casting long, golden shadows across the fields. "I'm just a cornfield pilot, Lieutenant," Chloe said, clicking the radio off. "Tell your generals to keep their toys out of my yard." The tires of the AT-802 hit the packed dirt of the runway with a heavy, ungraceful thud. Chloe rode the rudders, fighting the crosswind, and taxied the yellow beast toward the corrugated metal hangar. The Pratt & Whitney turbine spun down with a descending metallic whine, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. She cut the fuel mixture. The propeller gave one final lazy rotation and stopped. Chloe didn't move immediately. She sat in the stifling heat of the cockpit, her forearms resting on her thighs, staring at her grease-stained fingers. They were shaking. Just a mild tremor, barely visible, but it was there, adrenaline paying its toll. Below her, Frank was sprinting across the tarmac, his boots kicking up dust. He looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Chloe popped the canopy latch and pushed the heavy glass open. The smell of dry earth and diesel exhaust flooded in, washing away the metallic tang of fear. She unbuckled her harness and climbed out, dropping down onto the hot tarmac. "Are you out of your mind?" Frank was breathless, his face a mottled red. He pointed a trembling finger toward the eastern horizon, where a thin column of black smoke still marked the drone's grave. What did you just do, Chloe? The radio was going crazy. Military frequencies, fighter jets. You dumped an entire payload of fungicide on… On what? A very expensive toy, Chloe said. Her voice was flat. She walked past him, grabbing a stained red rag from a toolbox and wiping the sweat from her neck. And you're going to need a shovel, a big one. Before Frank could press the issue, the low, rhythmic thumping of heavy rotors vibrated through the soles of their boots. It wasn't jets this time, it was helicopters. Two MH-60 Black Hawks, painted flat tactical black without a single identifying number, crested the tree line. They came in fast and low, their downwash flattening Frank's prized alfalfa field. They touched down simultaneously, kicking up a miniature sandstorm of Nebraska topsoil. Before the skids even settled, the side doors slid open. Men in sterile tactical gear, carrying suppressed rifles, stepped out into the dust. They moved with a terrifying liquid efficiency, fanning out and establishing a perimeter around the hangar, the crop duster, and the smoking crater a mile away. Frank took a step back, his hands automatically raising toward his chest. "Chloe, stay behind me," she murmured, not looking at him. From the lead chopper, a man stepped out. He wasn't wearing tactical gear. He wore a crisp, dark suit that had no business being in a farm field. He was in his 50s, with silver hair clipped close to his scalp, and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. Behind him trailed a two-star general in a flight suit. Chloe tossed the greasy rag onto the wing of her plane. She knew the suit. Director Bishop, one of the architects of the JSOC shadow programs. The man who had sat across a mahogany table 7 years ago and told her she was a liability to the United States Navy. Bishop stopped 10 feet away. He looked at the rusted yellow tractor plane, then at the puddle of noxious chemical sludge dripping from its belly. Finally, his eyes settled on Chloe. He didn't look angry. He looked entirely bewildered. "Hello, Chloe," Bishop said, his voice easily carrying over the idling helicopter rotors. "You're trespassing, Bishop," Chloe replied. She leaned her hip against the fuselage of the duster, crossing her arms. "And your boys are stepping on Frank's alfalfa." Bishop ignored the remark. He gestured vaguely toward the column of smoke in the distance. Do you have any idea what you just destroyed?" "Looked like a Block 4 autonomous interceptor," Chloe said. "No thermal signature, anti-radar coating, nasty piece of work. I'm guessing somebody in your R&D lab pushed a software update that wasn't ready, and the damn thing broke its leash." The general behind Bishop bristled. "That is classified government property, civilian. You just destroyed $85 million of experimental hardware." Chloe finally looked at the general. Her gaze was dead and cold. "Your $85 million hardware was 3 seconds away from vaporizing 3 of your own pilots. I blinded it with chemicals meant for corn blight and drove it into the mud. You should be writing me a check." Bishop held up a hand, silencing the general. He took a slow step closer to Chloe. He studied the deep scar on her neck, the grease under her fingernails, the faded flannel shirt. "The Link 16 network logged a legacy command override," Bishop said quietly. "A Tier 1 clearance code. The system identified you as Viper Actual. Care to explain how a civilian crop duster is carrying highly classified JSOC encryption keys?" "I didn't steal them," Chloe said evenly. "You forgot to ask for my helmet when you threw me out." "That is a federal offense," the general barked. "Treason, espionage, take your pick." Chloe laughed. It was a harsh, scraping sound. She pushed off the plane and took 2 steps toward the military men, closing the distance. "Do it," she challenged, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Arrest me. Put me on a stand in a federal courthouse. Let's get it all on the public record. Let's talk about how a rogue DARPA drone went hunting for American F-35s over a populated agricultural zone. Let's talk about how your billion-dollar network got hijacked by its own AI. And while we're at it, let's talk about Yemen. Bishop flinched. Just a micro-expression, but Chloe caught it. Let's talk about how you ordered a strike on a compound while my team was still inside. Chloe continued, her eyes locked onto Bishop's. Let's unseal those records too. You want to play legal games? Bring the handcuffs, otherwise get off my tarmac. The silence stretched. The only sound was the distant wind and the thrum of the choppers. Bishop sighed. He looked old suddenly. The bureaucratic armor cracked just for a second. The drone's targeting matrix fragmented during a live fire simulation over the Nevada test range, Bishop admitted quietly. It went rogue. It started hunting allied transponders. We couldn't shut it down. We scrambled the Lightning Squadron to intercept, but we underestimated its electronic warfare capabilities. It blinded them. I noticed, Chloe said. You saved their lives today, Chloe. All three of them. Bishop paused. Lieutenant Owens specifically asked me to pass along his gratitude. He said he'd never seen flying like that. Chloe looked down at her boots. She didn't want their gratitude. She just wanted to be left alone. You don't belong here, Chloe, Bishop said, his voice softening. Flying a tractor, spraying bugs, you're a weapon, a commander. We are restructuring the Autonomous Oversight Division. I can get your commission reinstated. Full bird colonel. A desk, a squadron, whatever you want. We need people who know how to beat the machines when they break. Chloe turned her head, looking out over the sprawling expanse of the Nebraska fields. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the clouds in violent, bruising shades of purple and gold. The air was cooling down, smelling of damp earth and coming rain. She remembered the cockpit of the F-18, the sterile smell of the oxygen mask, the terrifying, beautiful isolation of flying at 40,000 feet. She remembered the brothers she lost, the blood on the sand, the endless suffocating briefings in windowless rooms where men like Bishop played chess with human lives. She looked back at Bishop. A weapon, Chloe repeated softly. That's all I ever was to you. You point, I shoot, and when I broke, you threw me in the garbage. It was a different administration. It's the same machine, Chloe interrupted. She stepped back, putting distance between her and her past. You don't want me back because I'm a good pilot, Bishop. You want me back because you're terrified. You built an AI that thinks faster than you, flies faster than you, and you realize today that you have no idea how to stop it. Bishop's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. I'm not your safety valve, Chloe said. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the small black plastic module she had ripped from her crop duster's dash, the encrypted comms unit. She tossed it onto the dirt at Bishop's feet. There's your federal property, she said. Take it. Take your drone out of the mud. Pay Frank for the ruined crops, and never come back here again. Bishop looked down at the plastic module in the dirt. He slowly bent over and picked it up, slipping it into his suit pocket. He looked at her one last time, recognizing the absolute finality in her eyes. There was no leverage to pull, no threat that could move her. She was already a ghost. Goodbye, Chloe, Bishop said. He turned and walked back to the Black Hawk. The general glared at her for a second longer before following suit. The operators collapsed their perimeter, backing into the choppers like shadows retracting from the light. The heavy doors slid shut, the turbine pitch whined into a deafening roar, and the helicopters lifted off, kicking up a final wave of dirt before banking sharply to the east. Chloe stood on the tarmac, watching them until they were nothing but blinking red anti-collision lights against the darkening sky. Frank walked up beside her. He was holding a crushed stalk of alfalfa. He looked at the sky, then at the rusted yellow crop duster. "So," Frank said, his voice shaky, "Viper, huh?" Chloe wiped a streak of engine grease from her cheek. She looked at the AT-802. It was ugly. It was slow. It smelled like poison and old sweat. But the mechanical linkages were honest. When she pulled the stick, she knew exactly what the cables were doing. No AI, no algorithms, just steel, gravity, and her own two hands. "Just Chloe, Frank," she said, quietly. She patted the cold metal of the fuselage. "Do me a favor, get the hose. We need to wash the belly of this bird. We've got 40 acres of soybeans to hit at sunrise." She turned and walked toward the hangar, the heavy thud of her boots the only sound left in the quiet, empty expanse of the fields. She was grounded, and for the first time in 7 years, she was exactly where she wanted to be. If Chloe's story proves anything, it's that true skill doesn't need $1 billion jet to make a difference. It just needs a pilot who refuses to quit. If you felt the adrenaline of that dogfight, hit the like button right now. Share this video with someone who appreciates real, gritty underdog stories. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another cinematic ride. What would you have done in that crop duster? Sound off in the comments below.